The warm embrace of steam filled the dimly lit sauna, creating a cocoon of heat that seemed to separate this small wooden room from the rest of the world. It was well past the gym's regular hours, that magical time when the usual crowds had dispersed, leaving behind a silence that felt almost sacred. The cedar walls glowed with a honey-amber hue under the soft lighting, and droplets of condensation trickled down like tears on a lover's cheek. This was my sanctuary, the place I sought when life became too loud, too demanding. Tonight was no different. After a particularly grueling week at work, I needed this solitude, this cleansing heat to wash away the residual stress clinging to my shoulders. I'm Alex, 32, and perpetually caught between wanting connection and fearing it. My friends call me reserved, but I prefer the term selective. Life had taught me that vulnerability comes with a price, so I'd built walls, comfortable ones that allowed me to navigate the world on my terms. The sauna had become my ritual Friday nights, after the gym officially closed. The owner, an old college friend, had given me special access, understanding my need for solitude. As I sat there, eyes closed, feeling the heat penetrate my muscles, I heard the door open with a soft creak. My eyes fluttered open, a mixture of annoyance and curiosity pulling me from my meditative state. That's when I first saw him. Tall, with broad shoulders tapering to a narrow waist, dark hair slightly damp at the temples, and a smile that seemed to know secrets about me I hadn't yet discovered myself. "Sorry," he said, his voice a pleasant baritone that somehow complemented the wooden acoustics of the sauna. Didn't realize anyone else had after-hours privileges. He stood in the doorway, a towel wrapped around his waist, another draped across his shoulders, uncertainty playing across his features. "It's fine," I replied, surprised at my own lack of irritation. "Plenty of room." I gestured to the empty bench across from me, suddenly aware of my own near-nakedness, the small towel covering just enough to maintain decency. He stepped inside, the door closing behind him with a soft thud that seemed to seal us together in this wooden womb of heat and steam. "I'm Daniel," he offered, settling onto the bench opposite mine, his movements fluid and confident. "Alex," I responded, noticing how the beads of sweat were already forming on his chest, tracing paths down defined muscles. I forced my gaze away, back to the neutral territory of his face, which wasn't much safer. His eyes were the color of whiskey held up to light, warm and intoxicating. "So you're the mysterious other key holder," Daniel said with a chuckle. "Marcus mentioned there was one other person who came in after hours. Said you were good people," his words. The mention of our mutual friend created an immediate bridge between us. "Marcus and I go way back. College roommates." "You, personal trainer. I started working here about 6 months ago." Daniel leaned back, his posture open and relaxed. "Marcus is a good guy. Lets me use the facilities to train my private clients sometimes." The conversation flowed with surprising ease after that. We discussed the gym, our respective jobs, mine in architectural design, his in fitness and wellness. There was something refreshing about talking to a stranger who somehow didn't feel like one. Perhaps it was the intimacy of the setting, or maybe it was just Daniel himself, who had a way of asking questions that made you want to answer honestly. "So why Friday nights alone in a sauna?" he asked, leaning forward slightly, genuinely interested. "Most people are out starting their weekends with friends, drinks, dates." I considered deflecting, but found myself answering truthfully. "I spend all week surrounded by people, expectations, deadlines. This is my decompression chamber. Just me, the heat, and the quiet." I paused, then added, "Usually the quiet." He laughed, the sound bouncing off the cedar walls. "Point taken. I'm intruding on your sanctuary." "No," I said, surprising myself again. "It's actually nice. Different, but nice." Something shifted in that moment, a recognition passing between us. The conversation deepened as the minutes stretched on. Daniel spoke about growing up in a small conservative town, his struggle to accept himself, and his eventual escape to the city. I found myself sharing things I rarely discussed: my parents' difficult divorce when I was 12, my subsequent retreat into academics and later work, my caution around relationships. "It's easier to design buildings than relationships," I admitted. "Buildings follow rules, physics, mathematics. People are unpredictable." Daniel nodded, understanding in his eyes. "But isn't that what makes connections valuable? That unpredictability?" The fact that someone chooses to stay even when they could go. His words resonated in a way I wasn't prepared for. The heat of the sauna seemed to intensify, or perhaps it was just my awareness of him, of this unexpected connection forming between us. As we talked, Daniel had gradually moved from the bench opposite me to sitting beside me. Not intrusively close, but close enough that I could sense the heat radiating from his body, distinct even in the warmth of the sauna. There was an energy between us, an invisible current that made my skin hyper-aware, my senses heightened. "You know," Daniel said, his voice lower now, more intimate. "I've always believed that spaces hold energy. This sauna, for instance, it's designed for purification, for release. People come here to let go of things." His eyes held mine, a question in them. "What are you trying to let go of, Alex?" The directness of his question caught me off guard. "Control, maybe," I answered honestly. "The need to have everything figured out, planned." Daniel smiled, a slow, thoughtful curve of his lips. "Control is overrated. Some of the best things in life happen when we let go a little." With that, he shifted his position, swinging one leg over the bench so he was straddling it, facing me directly. The movement was casual yet deliberate, eliminating the last pretense that we were just two strangers sharing a space. My heart accelerated, a drumbeat echoing in my ears. Daniel was now just inches away, his posture open, inviting, but not demanding. He was giving me space to retreat if I wanted to, but making it clear he hoped I wouldn't. "Is this okay?" he asked, his voice gentle, eyes searching mine for permission. I nodded, unable to find words for a moment. "Yes." I finally managed, my voice sounding strange to my own ears, rough with an emotion I hadn't allowed myself to feel in a long time, desire. Daniel reached out slowly, his hand coming to rest on my knee. Such a simple touch, yet it sent electricity through me, awakening nerve endings I'd forgotten existed. "I felt something the moment I walked in," he said. "A connection. Tell me you feel it too." "I do," I admitted, the words barely audible over the hum of the sauna heater. It's been a while since I've let myself feel anything like this." His smile was understanding, patient. "We can go as slow as you need." But something in me didn't want slow. Perhaps it was the heat making me lightheaded, or the vulnerability of our shared stories, or simply the magnetic pull I'd felt toward Daniel from the first moment. Whatever it was, I found myself leaning forward, closing the distance between us. Our lips met in a kiss that started gentle but quickly deepened, fueled by a hunger that surprised me with its intensity. Daniel's hands moved to cup my face, his touch reverent yet possessive. I found my own hands exploring the contours of his shoulders, the firm planes of his chest, skin hot and slick with sweat. Time seemed to suspend as we explored each other. The kiss broke only when we both needed air, and even then, we remained close, foreheads touching, breathing each other's breath. "I've never done anything like this," I confessed, feeling both exhilarated and slightly disoriented by my own boldness. Daniel's thumb traced my lower lip, his eyes dark with desire. "Neither have I. Not like this. Not with this immediate connection." What followed was a discovery of each other's bodies, preferences, the sounds we made when pleased. Daniel's hands were confident but considerate, always checking, always making sure I was comfortable as boundaries dissolved between us. The wooden bench beneath us, the heat enveloping us, the steam obscuring us, all became part of our cocoon as we lost ourselves in each other. Our encounter was both primal and tender. Moments of intense passion interspersed with whispered words, gentle touches, shared laughter when a particularly enthusiastic movement nearly sent us both sliding off the narrow bench. There was a freedom in this unplanned intimacy, a joy in the spontaneity that I, with my carefully structured life, rarely allowed myself to experience. Afterward, we lay side by side on the upper bench, bodies cooling slightly as the sauna's automatic timer clicked off, the heat beginning its gradual descent. Daniel's fingers traced lazy patterns on my chest, and I found myself studying his profile in the dimming light, the strong jaw, the slight curve at the corner of his mouth that hinted at his ready smile. "What are you thinking?" he asked, turning to face me, his expression open, unguarded. "That I came here tonight looking for solitude and found this. You." I gestured between us, still not quite having the words to define what had happened. Daniel's smile was warm, Genuine. Regrets. I considered the question seriously, searching myself for the anxiety or panic that typically followed moments of vulnerability. Surprisingly, I found none. No, I answered truthfully. No regrets. Just questions. About what happens now, outside this room, in the real world. Daniel propped himself up on one elbow, looking down at me with those whiskey-colored eyes that seemed to see right through my defenses. What do you want to happen? It was the question I'd been asking myself since our lips first touched. The old Alex would have retreated, would have classified this as a pleasant but isolated incident, would have already been constructing walls to protect against the potential pain of caring. But something had shifted in me. I want to see you again, I said, the words feeling both frightening and right. Not just here. Not just like this. I want to know you. The smile that bloomed across Daniel's face was radiant, lighting up his features in a way that made my chest tighten. I was hoping you'd say that. He leaned down, pressing a soft kiss to my lips. Because I definitely want to know you too, Alex. All of you. We stayed there a while longer, talking about simpler things, favorite foods, movies, places we'd traveled. The ordinary exchange of information that forms the foundation of knowing someone. Eventually, the cooling air reminded us that we needed to leave our sanctuary. As we dressed in the locker room, there was a new awareness between us, a mixture of shyness and intimacy that felt both strange and wonderful. Daniel entered his number into my phone, and I did the same with his. So, he said as we stood at the gym's exit, the night air cool against our still warm skin. Dinner tomorrow? I know a great little Italian place on Maple Street. I'd like that, I replied, feeling a smile spread across my face, one that felt unfamiliar after so long. The smile of someone looking forward to something, someone allowing themselves to hope. Daniel leaned in for one more kiss, this one gentle, a promise rather than a passion. Good night, Alex. Sweet dreams. As I watched him walk to his car, I felt a curious lightness in my chest. The night had begun as so many others had, me seeking isolation, comfort in the familiar routine of solitude. It had ended with me standing under the stars, watching a man walk away, but knowing he wasn't leaving, not really. He would be back, and so would I, stepping willingly into the unknown territory of possibility. The weeks that followed were a revelation. Daniel and I met for that dinner, which turned into a 4-hour conversation that only ended when the restaurant staff began stacking chairs around us. We discovered shared passions for hiking, obscure documentaries, and spicy food. We also found our differences, his morning person cheerfulness versus my night owl tendencies, his spontaneity against my careful planning, his openness compared to my natural reserve. But these differences didn't create distance. Instead, they became bridges we crossed to understand each other better. Daniel taught me to embrace spontaneity, to find joy in unplanned moments. I showed him the beauty in quiet contemplation, in savoring anticipation. Our physical connection remained intense, but it was now woven into something richer. Late-night conversations about childhood dreams, early morning coffees shared in comfortable silence, text messages throughout the day that made me smile in the middle of serious meetings. 3 months after our sauna encounter, Daniel moved in. 6 months later, we adopted a rescue dog, a scruffy terrier mix we named Cedar, a private joke referencing where we'd met. A year to the day after that first night, we returned to the sauna after hours, Marcus having arranged for us to have it to ourselves. As we sat in the now familiar heat, Daniel reached for my hand. Did you ever imagine, that night, that we'd end up here? I shook my head, smiling at the memory. I came in looking for escape and found a beginning instead. Daniel straddled the bench just as he had that first night, facing me with that same open, inviting posture. But this time, instead of leaning in for a kiss, he reached into the small bag he'd brought, pulling out a small wooden box. Alex, he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. That night changed everything for me. I walked into this room looking for some quiet time to think, and instead, I found the person I want to spend my life thinking with, talking with, being with. He opened the box, revealing 2 matching bands, simple but elegant. Will you marry me? The heat of the sauna couldn't match the warmth that spread through me at his words. Yes, I answered without hesitation, surprising myself with the certainty I felt. Absolutely yes. As Daniel slipped the ring onto my finger, I thought about the journey that had brought us here, from two strangers seeking solitude to two people choosing to build a life together. It had begun with a chance encounter, a disruption to my carefully ordered world. That disruption had become the most beautiful part of my life. Later that night, lying in our bed with Cedar snoring softly at our feet, Daniel's head resting on my chest, I reflected on how drastically my life had changed in just 1 year. The man who had once valued control and predictability above all else had learned to embrace the beautiful chaos of love, the exhilarating uncertainty of sharing a life. "What are you thinking about?" Daniel murmured, his voice heavy with approaching sleep. I pressed a kiss to the top of his head, breathing in the scent that had become home to me. Just that sometimes the best things in life happen when you're not looking for them. When you're just sitting alone in a sauna, and someone walks in and straddles the bench across from you. Daniel chuckled, the sound vibrating against my chest. Best decision I ever made. As we drifted toward sleep, I silently thanked whatever twist of fate had brought us to the same place at the same time. Two people looking for solitude but finding, instead, the connection that would transform both our lives. In the quiet dark of our bedroom, far from the heat of that sauna, I held the future in my arms and knew that some disruptions are actually beginnings in disguise. And this beginning, unexpected and unplanned as it was, had become the most beautiful story of my life. Total _char_count, 17,562.